So yeah, just
Hi, Bala.
quickly introducing Inspire India. I think I've put a lot of details in the post that I put up about the invitation um, for this show. So I'm not going to go into too much over there. Yeah. So briefly to just show y'all, I've posted this before on the Cycling Journal podcast. This is a all the different aspects of cycling. And we are going to be focusing on this area today, which is the bottom right corner, which is ultra or long distance cycling.
But
Yeah.
ना ना अब तो राजकोट नो आता बरं
Yeah.
पुढच्या वेळेस भेटलं का बरं
Could you all just mute your
आवाज
self
swap
while this is going on? Yeah, thanks. So yeah, just a little brief background on myself. I was used to be an ultra cyclist. I can't say I am anymore because I haven't been cycling much, but I did a few. I became the first and the only woman from India to qualify for PBP in 2011 and attempt PBP. And in that year, we were 15 of us, and we had a very, very tiny number of brevets to choose from. Literally, it was the SR series that I organized in Pune, and there was one other series that was organized in Bangalore, and a couple of other rides that we could do. We could use to get into PVP, to qualify for PVP. I mean, this is all we had throughout the whole year. And of course, as you know, now things have grown tremendously. Raghu is over here, who has taken over from me as the national representative, and I don't know how many clubs we've grown to. I've had this experience of seeing how this growth has happened in India from having literally nothing, no brevets at all, to having now thousands of brevets each year to choose from. And simultaneously, PBP participation in PBP has also grown.
ऐसे जंप नहीं करवा ना पूरा
Hey,
ऊपर गिर
can everybody just
ऐसे
mute
तो छोड़ दो
themselves, please?
फिर वो खुद जंप करेगा ऐसे मैं दिखाती हूँ ऐसे
Hey, folks, can you all just mute yourselves?
well done जीत गया ये
I think as an admin you can
I've muted all now. Yeah, it's just kind of difficult to go between screens. Anyway, simultaneously after starting Audax India over here, after PVP, I got introduced to Race Across America as well, and then started doing Race Across America qualifiers over here in India. I'll tell you a little bit more in detail about those in a little while. But just to go over this, some other race director experience and international race experience, I went repeatedly to crew at Race Across America, at race around Austria, race around Europe. And in 2019, I also volunteered as an official with PBP while there were 300 people from India who were taking part last year. Right. Yeah. So now to just, focus on this. So at some point, like previously in like to go back to this slide, I did all of this. I did leisure touring, I did commuting. I used to take my kids to school on the bicycle, all of that. The only thing that I didn't do when we moved into events was like road racing and MTB kind of thing. But and I focused more on this kind of grabbed my interest much more, which was ultra long distance cycling, and which is what all of you over here are already into. And so within this, in ultra or long distance cycling, broadly speaking, there have been two distinct formats. One is the supported racing, or Race Across America, or Race Around Austria, Europe. There's a whole family of these supported races. And when we say supported races, we're talking about each racer having their crew vehicles and, between 3 to 10, 12 crew members who are supporting them. It's more like a kind of, Formula One pit stop sort of style of racing. And you all know already that we're doing pretty well. I'm sure y'all have all heard of Kabir and how he's been doing at these races. So that's the supported racing format. Then within self-supported, you have a whole bunch of other formats of racing, and we'll go into more detail about each of them. There's the bike pack racing, which has Trans Am, TCR, North Cape 1000. And then there's this huge world of Audax or randoneering, which most of y'all are who are attending today are probably familiar with, having started with BRMs and from 200 kilometers to 1000, and then moved on to LRM, which is 1200 kilometers onwards under Audax India. And then in between these two, in the last few years, Inspire India created a new format, which is self-supported ultra races within our RAM qualifiers. So we had the RAM qualifier races, which until now were only supported races were counted as RQs. We actually don't know about the rest of it as of now. So we'll see about that anyway. So within self-supported ultra cycling, just to briefly give you a background in the formats of who or what counts for validation or accreditation. So actually, if you Google the definition of ultra cycling, you'll see for yourself that there's a lot of variation within that. Some of them define it as a minimum of 100 miles, which is 160 something kilometers. And then there's some other definitions which say at least a 300 kilometers effort of a single effort. So, but really the reason why there is no absolute definition for this is that there are a lot of different organizations, different authorities which validate or accredit their own events. And sometimes these are in the form of national or international organizations or clubs. Sometimes even an event is involved in doing this validation. So, of course, there's Audax Club Parisian, which oversees brevets all across the world. And within that umbrella, there is another organization called Les Randonneurs Mondiaux, which oversees all events of 1200 kilometers or more, except PBP. PBP is still under the authority of Audax Club. And then Audax Club has given Audax India Randonneurs the authority to validate all the BRMs that take place in India. So this is how the validation kind of works. And what validation does, or what it means, is that we're kind of setting certain parameters within which we're validating results of certain riders. So there's rules, there's regulations, there's all the parameters that have to be met by racers or randonneurs to be able to get validated for their event. Then if you come to RAM has a family of other ultra races which they oversee, and RAM also validates RAM qualifiers. So Inspire India's races are validated by Race Across America. Then there's VUCA, which used to be called UMCA a little while back. VUCA is the World Ultra Cycling Association, and they are a big record-keeping organization which you can apply to them for records, somewhat similar to Guinness, but their VUCA is specific to ultra cycling, whereas Guinness records cover everything from somebody wanting to grow their nails. I'm serious about that, but to cycling and running or other records. So I frankly don't have too much respect for the way Guinness validates their records. We've already had that experience in India of a case of someone, traveling in his Winger while setting a Guinness record. I mean, in the end, he didn't do or apply for it, but Guinness doesn't oversee anything at all. They don't have anyone on ground who's validating anything. So the validity of Guinness itself is not something that we really give too much regard to. And Inspire India self-supported races are validated by us itself. As of now, at Inspire India, we are sort of trying to create uh, our own validity, or over here, that we set the standard. So Inspire India itself becomes a kind of gold standard for the events that take place. And as those of you who have participated in Inspire India events know, that we are very strict about the rules. We have zero tolerance for any form of cheating, and we are trying to create people who create an ecosystem of holding a high standard. And then the last one over here is bike pack racing, which, like I said, some of you all are familiar with TCR and Trans Am and North Cape 4000. Some Indians have already done North Cape 4000. Someone's been there at Trans Am, but I think finished. I'm not sure actually. But bike pack racing is another, sort of format which doesn't have any single authority that's overseeing it. They're a bit more renegade in that way. So coming to the kind of formats and the events that you have. So within the formats, there's a huge diversity of formats with different combinations of these parameters, that I've listed over here. So most of them are time trials, but some of them also don't have time limits. Though the most do, say PBP, LEL, our races, all of these do have time limits, RAM, etc. But there are some bike pack races which don't have a time limit. Then most of these events have time of passage controls. That means I'm not talking about the finish control. I'm saying that within the event itself, there are certain points certain control points which you have to pass through at a certain time limit. Otherwise, you could be out of that event, or you could be out of time limit, even if you finish within time later. Most of these are without stages. So that means it's a single time trial. Once the clock starts from the beginning to end, it's one. So for example, Race Across America is 5,000 kilometers without any stages at all. Your time starts at one end of the United States, and until you reach the other side, your race time is continuing. Whether you stop or not is up to you, how much rest you need. But there are no stages within it. But there are some races with stages. For example, Trans-Siberian is a stage race. Inspire India self-supported races all have stages in them. Then with or without organization support. So this also is hugely varied. For example, PVP and LEL will provide some amount of support, but only at the control points. Then say the bike pack racing, Trans Am, North Cape, etc., give absolutely zero organization support on ground while you're passing. And in fact, you're not even allowed to take any kind of support, external support from, you can't have supporters or friends or anybody come and meet you and give you anything on the way either. Also, some are competitive and some are non-competitive. So the entire ODAX organization is completely non-competitive, and bike pack races, RAM, the Inspire India, these are all races. And some of the events are listed on the side over here. So under ODAX, you have brevets, LRMs like PBP, LEL, all the ones that you all are conducting and participating in over here in India. Then there's RAM, RAW, which I've listed already. And under Inspire India, we have, as of now, 3 events: Deccan Cliffhanger, Ultra Spice, and Great Himalayan. Then there's the Trans-Siberian, which is a 9,000 kilometer race, which has stages, and the organization provides support, and you have 1 or 2 crew members. It's a different kind of a format from the others. Just one moment. Yeah. And Trans Am and these. Yeah. Yeah, so just to go over what so there's been 3 PBPs since India started participating. The first one was in 2011, and we had 15 participants, out of which 2 were homologated, that is, finished in time and homologated. And this came to about 13.3% of, were successful finishes in that year. In 2015, in 2015, there were 55 participants, of which 22 were homologated. And this was a good upgrade in that we went from 13.3% success rate to a 40% success rate. Unfortunately, the next year, that there was PBP 2019. In 2019, out of 300 participants, only 41 were homologated. A few more finished, but outside of time limits. Quite a few more finished outside of time limits. And that percentage came again to 13.66, which was a rather shocking, actually. And, like I said, I was there as a volunteer for, I was officiating for PBP. And after that, I attended the international meet of all the national representatives. And I can tell you that I was very politely questioned as to what was going on in India with respect to BRMs, etc., because most of the rest of the world was a little shocked. Not a little, I'm being polite again now, but most of the world was shocked at how bad this turnout was. They saw participants who had barely completed about 200 kilometers, 300 kilometers, who were quitting. And this was something they'd never seen, because they're like, you've come prepared to do 1,200 kilometers, and why are racers quitting? So I was in a position in which I had to give some kind of an explanation to Jean Gobe, the person who runs Audax Club Parisian, and explain to him that of the 300 people who participated in PBP that year, most had only started cycling within the last couple of years. And hardly, I think there were just 3 or 4 participants who had done PBP before. Some might, a very small number had done thousands and 1,200s in India, and those were part of the group that did succeed and get homologated in that year. I don't know, maybe Raghu, if you can unmute yourself and give us a little feedback on LEL numbers.
I'm sorry, I don't have the final numbers yet on the LEL finishers, but it was somewhere around 40% when the event got over, and I just got over, and I tried to calculate, do a rough calculation of the number of people who finished within the time limit. Once again, in LEL, there were a whole number of people who finished outside time limit. They kept going.
Right.
Some of them finished as much as one whole day after the cutoff time.
Yes, I remember.
But yeah, I mean, about 40% is what is the finish rate that got homologated.
Okay, that's a little better. That's a little better.
Sorry for interruption. Dr. Chandrakant Dharpade here, madam.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, fine. It's 46 or 47 people have completed this year alien.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many participated, Chandrakant?
Around 117.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So that's around a 40% plus. Good. That's a little better than the PVP numbers. So yeah. All right. So here's what I have seen over these years of doing events in India and going abroad and doing them. We have to approach our international participation in these events, whether it could be anything, PVP, LEL, any of the other ODAX or LRM events. I know that people have been looking at doing others. Some have already gone. Rini has gone and done the Thailand one, and they've had good success at that one. But in general, when you're planning to go abroad and do participate, participate in an international event, remember a couple of things. One is that just expect that everything is going to be challenging for you. So, and some of these challenges are going to be ones which are totally outside of your control. So, things which would not, like, I don't think any cycling organization anywhere in the world would be talking about the first point that I've put over here. But this is something that has been a challenge for participants from India, for PVP and for LEL in every single time that we have gone there. It's a ridiculous thing that, to have to consider this as one of the challenges, but it is. And now this is not something that's within your control to some extent. To some extent, you can tweak it and make sure that your application is good. And I think Raghu has created some very good resources for you to ensure that you make your visa application properly. At our end, from ODAX India in these years, when until I was the national rep, and now after Raghu will be in touch with France, with ACP, we do what our best to try and ensure that participants get as much support from us for their visas. I know I have done this for some of you who are attending this session also, made letters and sent out things. In the very first PVP, in PVP 2011, I took a personal guarantee on my passport for 5 of the participants. Then they got their visa. Till that point, they were being refused their visas also. So just remember this. Gautam, could we just do the Q&A after we're done with this? So just keep this in mind. Visa issues, we do try to assure. I know Raghu and Chiro and a couple of others did their best to get the visas for UK cleared for just before LEL, but for some participants it was too late. So, and for some it's like you don't know whether you're going or not going and how this is going to affect your training and your state of mind. And people have gone at the very last minute having got their visas and spent double on their tickets and things. So just keep in mind that when I say everything is a challenge for these events, is everything, things that you wouldn't otherwise expect can also become a challenge on your way. So the ones that are within your control are the ones that you focus on. Some of the other things that you will find that will become a travel challenge for you are just having to travel, jet lag, language issues in the country that you go to. Like in France, language is an issue. They do speak a little bit of English, but it's sketchy at best. And, it sometimes is just difficult to communicate. Even during the event, you would think that the volunteers would be able to speak English, but that's not the case. Most of the volunteers are an older generation which doesn't speak much English. So be prepared for that as well. Riders do face some kind of health issues also from just the stress of traveling and things like that. Then there's the issue of being unfamiliar with absolutely everything over there. Everything, the way you navigate, the side of the road that you're cycling on could be different from what we have over here. Everything. When I say everything, means everything is unfamiliar. Then there is, and this was a big issue in PBP 2019, there was a general excitement on everybody's part of being abroad. Most of the people from the 300, I think 60 to 75% were probably going abroad for the very first time in their life. And a lot of energy was spent in exploring and, just being tourists before PVP. And according to me, you spend a lot of energy doing that. So, and it's much better to just stay calm and conserve your energy for PVP itself. Then the ease of access in India, availability of food, water, en route, and support from organizers. So be aware of this, that in India, on our highways, we have everything like is so available right on the road that we don't even think that it would be different anywhere else in the world. But this is an issue in Europe, and I think in UK also. The other thing is that as much as we tell brevet organizers that let randonneurs become completely self-reliant to the point that they can actually provide support to each other. So the level of self-reliance should be that they're completely independent of organization support. But we do know that some of the organizers do provide a lot more support during brevets in India than you are going to get anywhere else. So in PBP, for example, if you go with that kind of expectation, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be left high and dry, not knowing how to handle it. So don't expect that kind of support. Food is a challenge in France for vegetarians, even in UK also, I'm sure. Also, there's the fact is that if people haven't traveled or have not been exposed to other kind of food, eating bread, and this is something which is not just a problem for Indians, this is a problem for a lot of people. The bread in France is different from the kind that we are used to eating. If you read up blogs of PBP participants from past years, this will be something that is commonly spoken about, that eating the crisp, hard bread can actually, it damages the roof of your mouth before you even start PBP, and then things start hurting and you're unable to eat properly. So just, these are the kind of small things that can become a big challenge over there. The other thing is mechanical failures due to not having packed your bike properly and not carrying the correct tools and spares. So I have a checklist which I'll just go through. Make your own checklist. Don't just take, somebody else's checklist, but make your own checklist of things that you should be packing and carrying with you. Don't expect to easily find bike shops that will be able to help you out. Even traveling between one place and the other can be, what is that? Did somebody okay. Mechanical failure because of not preparing or maintaining your bicycle. That's another easy one, which is very much in your control. People go to PBP on old tires, which they've used for training. They haven't replaced their tubes for a while. Their brake pads are not in condition. The other one common thing that I must say right now is to carry a bike hanger. So going back to the previous point of mechanical failures due to not packing your bike properly or not carrying the spares, carry a spare RD hanger with you. The RD hanger acts like a fuse. And if there's pressure on your RD hanger, or if you haven't removed your RD hanger, removed your rear derailleur rather, the RD hanger could actually bend or break. And RD hangers, for some reason, bike manufacturers across the world have decided that no RD hanger from one bike can just easily replace another RD hanger. So they're very, very specific to each bike and each model. So get yourself your own bike RD hanger and keep that with you. It's a tiny little thing. Just keep it with you in your spares until you get there. We almost had one randonneur in 2015 unable to even start without his RD hanger, and we managed to procure it. This is not something easily available also. And then just make sure that your bike is in 100% great condition before you start. Old chain, or don't even risk it. You're spending $1 lakh or more on your travel. Don't take a risk of having an old, not spending a few grand on just upgrading things and making sure your stuff is in good condition. Lack of conditioning for extreme weather, lack of the proper gear. So yes, Indians did half freeze on the roadside at 2019. I met one rider at the finish line, young guy from Bangalore, I forget his name. But he actually, so we forget how cold things can get. And I know of 2 or more people who a lot of the participants were actually shocked that some of us Indians were just sleeping on the side of the road. It's not suggested that you do that in cold weather. So this one guy who I met told me how he had actually some degree of hypothermia, and they put him in the ambulance to warm him up. And then they were actually not going to let him ride, but then I think he insisted that he was okay, and he continued riding. I think there was a female rider who was not permitted to continue riding because of the same reason. Then so prepare yourself with the proper gear for extreme weather. There's nothing else that you can do about it, but it does get very cold. In 2015, we had riders unable to continue riding because their fingers were freezing cold, and on downhills they couldn't control their bicycles properly. It was that cold or at least we're feeling much colder than the others who are used to that kind of weather. So don't compromise on this. And then the terrain, lack of training, lack of familiarity with different kinds of terrain and how to ride them efficiently. So one of the issues I see is that most riders prefer to ride locally. There's a small handful which will go across the country and ride at different events and different terrain in different parts of India. If you have 6 months to do that now. If you can explore that, just so that you get far more exposed to riding in different terrain and challenge yourself. Yeah. So what are the things that you can do to prepare for this? One is that you focus on what is within your control, and under no circumstances should you compromise on those. The external factors that you can't control, these will create further obstacles that you need to overcome during the event. But in the meantime, you do your best you shouldn't go there thinking, I don't know whether I'll be able to finish. You should have prepared yourself to the point that you should be 100% or more confident that you're going to be able to, physically, you're capable of doing that distance. So training obviously is the most important thing, and training through doing brevets, doing group rides, other events. And I would say, if you think you need it, please do consider getting coaching for yourself. This last point in that thing, the pure mileage versus focused training. So the thing is that most randonneurs only do mileage. And most are capable of doing huge mileage without thinking too much about it. And I've seen riders like, say, Raghu Reddy and Rajneesh also. They're able to do long distances without even needing to recover from it. But that's not everybody. Everybody's not able to do that. So especially for those who are on the slower side, it makes more sense to focus your training on becoming faster. And if you're able to train yourself, that's great. If not, do consider getting a coach. But it's not always like, for a race like RAM, for example, mileage just doesn't work. Just empty miles during your training is not going to do anything for you to prepare for a race like RAM. And bike mechanics is not rocket science. So just please get yourself enough, skills to be able to take care of most of the issues that you would face while traveling and afterwards and during the event itself. Don't try and depend on receiving help from someone else. Organize yourself, make and use checklists, fix up some kind of protocols for yourself as well, and stick to those protocols. Don't compromise on your lights, your equipment, or any technical gear. Read blogs, watch YouTube videos, study the route, and get good navigation. And any amount of time that you spend doing this is just going to help you understand what you're getting yourself for. So whether it's PBP or LEL or any of the other races, the more information you have, the more familiar you are with the event that you're going in for. Learn to adapt, especially to food, and also find other solutions to be able to feed yourself during PBP. And for sure, test it all beforehand. So there are some kind of ready food packages, etc., or replacement for food that you can use during the events. But just make sure that you have tested it out and that you don't get yourself a stomach upset. This is really important that you test it beforehand. Do brevets, other events in India. And so here's the thing. that if you're doing long distance or even the short distance brevis in India as you're training or other events, you have to be able to do them in 75% of the given time for you to be able to do the PBP in time, for example. So if you're using, 39.5 hours to do a 600 brevet out here, the chances of being able to do the 1200 over there in time are less. So, you need to set this kind of a target for yourself that you go out there to do, oh God. So you set yourself this target of doing things faster within 75% of the time so that you can succeed out there. And do an honest appraisal of your own abilities. Sorry, was someone trying to say something? Okay. Yeah. Everything that you do during an event has to be tried and tested beforehand. And when I say everything means, again, it's everything, including your socks, your underwear, your hair clip, absolutely everything needs to be checked out beforehand. Don't even use a new buff or something. You don't know what will give you a small problem, which would escalate into something during the event. And the last one is that, seek discomfort continually. You are going to be outside of your comfort zone throughout. And if you want to achieve something outside of your comfort zone, you're going to have to actively seek discomfort. So don't, target doing things easy out here. You've got 6 or 7 months to make sure that you get out of that comfort zone and stay out of that comfort zone. Okay, I think that one ends this. Yeah. Okay. That was some of my input that I wanted to give with regard to PBP. I'm just going to quickly check one of the things that we had, or before we move on to Inspire India and our format of races and Ultra Spice more specifically, which is coming up soon. I wanted to just check with some of the Deccan Cliffhanger participants who did the self-supported a couple of 1 month back. Had mentioned that they had faced some challenges that they wanted to discuss. So if the DC participants are here, were there any, or even previous participants of Ultra Spice or Great Himalayan have any challenges that they... No? You can mute yourselves or... Okay. No challenges. Cool. Good. Ritvik, do you remember if there was any... I don't remember who had said that they had some challenges related to food or something that they wanted to discuss. Anyway, that's okay.
Food has always been a challenge because you're traveling to a different region. There's not always going to be a scenario wherein the food that you're comfortable with is going to be available easily. So, planning your nutrition is of utmost importance, because without the correct nutrition, if your gut is not healthy during the ride, the whole ride can be, going down the drain very quickly.
Yeah.
Shankar here. What I feel, Inspire India family will know my issues with gut.
Yes.
But I would like to share my thoughts on this food issue. See, as a randonneer, right? See, one thing a randonneer who's coming into Inspire India or a race scenario needs to understand that the time for the same distance is not the same as a randonneering time. Okay.
Right.
So as a first time racer, I still remember, and it was foolish. I actually didn't have anything solid for the entire race day, right? So the back of my head, the thought was, if I stop, I'm losing time. And especially in Leh and Ladakh, there's nothing ready. Like if you're doing running or some local dishes like in Nagpur, poha might be always ready. So worst case, you will just order poha, or down south you will order idli or something like that, or rice, which is very quickly available.
Yeah.
But one thing that we as racers need to keep in mind is how you're gonna fuel yourself. Because I remember Ajay once told me when I was growing, he said a racer doesn't lose a race by slowing down, but he loses a race by stopping. So that's always stuck to my mind, So if I stop, am I losing too much time? So I think I'll go back to your advice that, if you want to race or you want to do events like PVP, concentrate on getting yourself to do better speeds than just the mileage.
Yeah.
So that's my experience with food. I'm always scared in a race situation to stop and have food.
Yeah, it's so for sure.
I'm not the fastest, so yeah, I need to make up time somewhere.
Right. So for sure, the self-supported race format is the average speed required is much faster than in breves. And we, in fact, even for RQ racers, we tell those who are coming from doing breves from the Audax world who are coming into doing ultra racing is that not only do you have more time to stop and feed yourself and get a bottle of water and go to the toilet and stuff, but you also get a little bit of rest when you do that. So your body also has to, get used to riding continuously without breaks during the races. That's for sure. Yeah. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and start the presentation on Ultra Spice with a little background on Inspire India events, etc., and then jump into Ultra Spice and also compare it with PVP. One of the reasons why the 1200 is designed the way it is that we did actually consider that it would be a very good race for people who are planning PVP to do it. I'll explain the format as we get there. Just a second. Let's start that. You're not able to see the slideshow, right? Yeah. Can everybody see the slideshow?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Inspire India, our races, just to be very clear about that, we do create races which are challenging, and that is part of the thing that allows racers to perform better outside India as well. And even within India, we think that it's, there's value to doing things which are more challenging. So there's no reason to do something easier. So yeah, we've also had Inspire India team at Race Around Austria, 2-person team, Bharat and Darshan, did 2,200 kilometers. And we have all three of the races that we have. So those of you who are not familiar with it, we have 3 events. There's the Deccan Cliffhanger, which we've just finished the 9th edition. Next year will be the 10th edition of this race. So I'm a little excited about that. And then we have the Ultra Spice, which by the end of January, it's going to be the 6th edition. And we've had 4 editions of the Great Himalayan, which is the world's highest ultra race, actually. So, yeah. And so this is a little background about why, the intention of creating Deccan Cliffhanger and the other races over here was to provide a platform of opportunities for racers to meet international challenges. And Deccan Cliffhanger has actually done that. all the racers who have, solo and most of the relay racers also who have performed well in ultra cycling races outside of India, including RAM, race around across the West, Ra and Trans-Siberian. All of them have started their ultra cycling event journey from Deccan Cliffhanger. And the other two races, the Ultra Spice race was the kind of in-between step, the stepping stone between Deccan Cliffhanger, which is 640 kilometers, to race across America, which is 5,000 kilometers. So we figured 1,200 and 1,750 kilometers multi-day racing would give that kind of experience here in India. So each of our races, again, like I said, that, India has got fantastically diverse terrain and geography. It's such a fabulous country in terms of the diversity and the geography that we have. So all three of our races explore very different terrain, very different climates, and they're all beautiful. The Ultra Spice starts from Goa and goes up to Ooty. We'll just come to that in a bit. And the other important thing that we have been, very aware of, and we try to do it around our events, is to create a community, because I think that that community is important, because we learn from each other and things grow and evolve through the people within the community. So it's been important for us to create that around these events. So coming to the Ultra Spice, this is the longest ultra race in India, and it gives you all an opportunity to push your limits beyond what you have done so far. There are two distances, the 1,750 and the 1,200 kilometer. We've already had participants who, a very elite set of randonneurs have participated in our self-supported races. Participants who finished PBP, who finished LEL, who finished both actually, like Gallon, who's in this picture here, and the route is magnificent. So this is the PBP route. I was not able to find the full 2023 route. So this is a screenshot of the 2019 route. But basically, this doesn't change so much. Minor changes may be there, but essentially the elevation gain that PBP gives you is 11,586 meters over a 1,220 kilometer race. And that elevation gain is over a rolling terrain. So you're continuously going uphill or downhill. And I can tell you, one of the things that you need to be prepared for in this is rolling terrain challenges you in a sort of a technical way, in the sense that you have to be very aware of the gears that you use to maximize your efficiency on the bike, your own efficiency I'm talking about. So it's a slightly you should experience rolling terrain as much as you can before you go to be able to do this. Because one of the other things I found doing cycling on rolling terrain was that you would think that the downhills give you a break, but the downhills are over faster than you can recover, and the next roller is in front of you. So climb as much as you can before you go to PBP, and climb fast. So this is the route for the Ultra Spice 1,200 kilometer. And as you can see, the total elevation gain in the Ultra Spice 1,200 is actually more than that of PVP. So if you see over here, it's a good, I think 2 or 3%, 2% more, I think. 3.7, no, more than that, about 4% more almost. The only thing is that the distribution of the elevation is slightly different, in that there is rolling terrain throughout during Ultra Spice also. There are very, very few flat-ish segments where you have maybe 15 or 20 kilometers of riding in which you don't have too much of a climb or a downhill. But most of this route is also rolling terrain with 2 or 3, distinct big climbs that you have to go through. So this is the terrain that we have. And this is the race format. So the 1200 kilometers self-supported format, I'm only giving the timings here for the self-supported men. The women's timing and 50 plus men's timings are listed on the website. There are a few hours more. I think 6 hours more for the women and 50 plus men, and maybe more for older women. So the UltraSpice 1200 works as 2 stages. Now, if you notice, both the stages are 600 kilometers and each stage is 40 hours. So it's literally like doing 2 back-to-back 600 BRMs. We provide you with a drop bag once in the middle of the route at 340 kilometers and once at the finish line, at the turnaround point, where you also get, a 4-hour break at where the second drop bag is being provided to you. And then the next morning you're flagged off again. So this is one thing. And also the distances between the controls are similar to what you will have at PVP. The difference here is, however, in PVP, each control point is timed. You have to pass through each control point at a specific time. In UltraSpice 1200, we leave it entirely up to you. So you can actually, you can do things like going fast and taking a bit of a break and then continuing fast and time yourself over a 40-hour period to complete your 1200. That's because that is our format. Our format is not the same as the Breve format. But what is useful here is the terrain, that is the challenging terrain, is what would be useful to you. And if you really have a adventurous soul, then I would suggest doing the 1750 kilometer event, which has a lot more terrain challenges to the terrain. But that route, from Madikeri to Ooty and back is incredibly more beautiful. You go down into Kerala, and then Kerala is like unbelievably beautiful. You ride through Wayanad, rolling hills, and then you climb up to Ooty and back. And the good thing about going all the way to Ooty and back is Ooty will expose you to super cold climate. We have had racers come to Ooty with icicles on their beard and mustache. So if you want that kind of exposure, go for it. This is the format for the 1750 kilometer. I'll just go over this briefly, and then maybe I can spend more time on it with the 3 racers who are signed up for this event this year. We have the first stage is 772 kilometers, and that will finish at Wayanad. You have just one more. You have 60 hours to complete the 772 kilometers. After that, you get a halt over there with your drop bags. And then the next morning, there's a flag off. And the second stage is a very tough stage in the sense that we have strict control timings over there. And those strict control timings will apply for all age groups. We can't change that because we go through a forest section where you have to go through the forest and return through that section within 16 hours. So there is a cutoff at Ooty on top, and there is a cutoff to return back to Kalpetta. So those are the details of this. You can come back to Kalpetta, take a little break if you want, or continue riding. The third stage doesn't have a separate flag off or a break time. So there's only one halt time included within the race timing. And then the stage 3 starts from Kalpetta again, which is 68 hours in total. There's no flag off for this. You continue going, and we only have some more cutoffs in the middle, one more cutoff in the middle, to make sure that you pass through Shimoga at a time that allows you to get to the finish in good time. So that's the format for this one. No, that's it. Yeah. So, yeah, are there any questions? Particular, like anything related to the 1200 or the 1750?
What is the eligibility criteria?
We don't have an eligibility criteria, but have you, what is your, like, what are the longer distances that you've done? The longest that you've done, say?
I'm a bit new, so I think max I've done about 100 plus something, not even 100 as of now. So
Okay,
I'm not looking forward to sign up right now because
right.
I'm just too new, maybe after
Yeah,
a year or something.
yeah.
But in general, just wanted to understand if there are like somebody has to do all breves or something like that.
No, we don't have any eligibility for any of our races, really. The reason for that is we've seen racers who haven't done any other events but target and train towards these races and do them without doing any other brevets or long distance or races whatsoever. So that's not a problem. However, of course, we suggest that your training takes you through step by step through this process of being able to do that distance and within the time limits that we have. So depending on where you are and what your, I would reverse engineer. Frankly, I would decide, say, okay, 1 year from now, I'm targeting XYZ event, and then depending on what that distance and what that event is, then you reverse engineer your training to this point and see what. So for sure, use brevets that are taking place around you for as a stepping stone for these events as well. But I mean, it's not essential, but they're great events to just sign up and you meet other people, you learn from them. So, you know.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Oh, let's see. Yeah, I found, so there's a couple of resources which are online. One, I think I'll just share it in the chat and y'all can just take it from here. One is yeah, so the first link I'm sharing out here is the link to Raghu's video on preparing for PBP. He's done a really extensive overview on preparing for PBP, the road to PBP 2023. Please go through that. Then I'm sharing. Oops, sorry.
The crew takes care of.
This next link I'm sharing is a seminar that we had with Bharat Pannu. Those of you who have come across him will know he's actually done our races in supported format, in self-supported format also, and Guinness. So this session, he covered the differences in detail from a racer's point of view, how what you undergo during these races and how the approach is different, etc. as well. And this link, the last link that I've shared is a small, or during one of our seminars, we had one session in which I shared details about my own checklist and, how to create your own and how to use it to make sure that you don't have small, minor things going wrong. And then, actually, I have found a couple of really interesting blogs talking about PBP. Just Google them, and I'll just share one of them out here because this one had quite a bit of stuff going on. But if you Google, you'll find so much, Yeah. Any other questions anyone have? Nyaneshwar, did you have any questions about the upcoming event?
I thought we'd be having a separate session, right? Or
We will. But if there's anything related to what we've talked about now, we'll be having a separate session once we close registrations. But yeah, sure, no problem.
For the visa thing, I was just checking if we can have some kind of a visa agency guy coming and giving us a pep talk with interested people, taking
For
through the
PBP,
process for the PBP. Would that be
Raghu,
helpful?
Raghu might be able to give some input on that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question for me?
No, I said for the folks in India, if we can organize a session with the visa representative or someone who could come and give a talk about application process for France or for Schengen visas.
Yeah, fine. We have time for that. I mean, regarding visa, this thing. I, since the visa issue has been raised, I just wanted to address what earlier Divya mentioned in her presentation about people having issues with LEL visa. Largely towards the end, out of about 150 registered participants, there were 50 people who hadn't gotten their visa. And the list that was compiled, I was looking at the date of application. Most of them had applied in June and July for an event that was in August. Okay, that list had only 5 people who had applied in May. So the majority issue was applying pretty late, even though everyone was warned that there is application backlog for the UK visa. Now, in case of Schengen, the challenge is very different. For UK, you get a 6 months validity single visit tourist visa that you can go on to participate at LEL. But for PBP, you will need to apply for a 60-day valid tourist visa. And I don't believe you can apply more than 60 days prior to your travel date. And unlike UK, which does not require submission of your flight tickets and hotel bookings, PBP will require you to submit copies of all those things, and they will verify them.
Yeah.
Okay. So more detailed session we can have later, because you can't apply more than 2 months out. So right now, I feel what people need to be focusing on for PBP is training. Please focus on your training and focus on getting all the right equipment, gear, technical clothing, things like that. Whatever you want to ride at PBP, do your winter breves using that equipment, so you are familiar with that. Other things like visa and these things, we can address those things at the appropriate time. Do not also waste too much time trying to analyze the route too minutely, or trying to simulate those things virtually. If you are doing indoor training, focus on structured power-based training. Okay. And don't waste too much time right now with spreadsheets and control point cutoff timings and things like that. Now is the time to focus on your winter riding, winter training. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kishan, would you like to share anything about your PBP experience? Any tips that for people?
Yeah, so one thing I observed was a lot of people was carrying a lot of weight with them. One of the participants I met was carrying 1 kg of food. So that's really kind of not required. The control points are 100 kilometers apart, right? So you can refill at each and every control point. The suffering from, not eating was more. A lot of people were not able to eat, and they totally avoided that, right? So that should not be the case. You can kind of get habituated with the local food if you are kind of traveling 1 week before. So that's one thing about the food. another thing about the cold is Raghu mentioned about the winter. So right now it's peak winter, we can say, in India, right? So take the advantage of this season, most out of it. Do night rides. So we did a lot of night rides in the winter. So we get to know what kind of cold we are habituated with, what kind of gears we can try in that. If you're buying the winter gear in, April, May, you won't be able to test them out and even don't know how it will be efficient in the cold. So yeah, I think a lot of people also complain about the cold at the night. So this is the right time to test your gears and ride in the winter season, because it is just 2 months you get for that. After that, you won't be able to train on that. Yeah. Yes, so that's what I guess.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Kishan. So Kishan is finished PBP 2019. He's going to be doing the 1750-kilometer ultra spice in a month's time. Anyone else have any other targets, like international events on their scanner that they want to sort of look into?
Chandrakant.
Yes. Hello.
Yeah, hello. I have did PBP and LL also.
Yes,
PBP
congratulations.
PBP completed because of you only. That's why we lost in drugs, lost control for 9 hours.
Yeah. Oh God. Yes.
Yeah. Me and Hulerna.
Right.
You remember?
Yes.
So
yes.
you required very good riding friend with you that who can take you to the end point. This is very important.
Yeah.
One more thing, you have to practice for all type of food, because you won't get Indian type of food anywhere in PBP route. Third thing, you should do right plan here. Night ride, even ghat section, because everywhere you find there is flat road, but you will get everywhere there is elevation and elevation in PBP route. You never see that there is plain route and you are going regular, very fast speed, but continuous there is up and down, but you never see you will see 4 kilometer, 5 kilometer long stretch for ghat section, but gradient is not much more there in PBP section like LEL. LEL has this year we found LEL gradient up to 24, 25, but PBP there is not much more gradient like PBP. So focus on your night ride and sleeping plan and food plan accordingly.
Yeah.
One more thing about travel plan, you should everybody knows riding gears and everything, but apply at least 4 months before for Shenzhen visa. You should not get any issue for like LEL we faced this year. I got a visa on last day.
Yeah. Even Gallon is here. Gallon also. He got his visa. Here too.
Yeah, so just another clarification on that again, since the visa thing came up at the last point. Shenzhen visa, the tourist visitor visa, you can't apply 4 months, 6 months in advance. Okay. Of course, it will depend if the visa rule changes, but the restriction is you can't apply for the Shenzhen visa more than 60 days prior. So that's a little different in case of Shenzhen.
Okay.
Some of the riders who do frequent traveling to Europe already have a business visa which has a completely different process. Okay.
Sure.
So, like I said, we'll have a separate session maybe a couple of months down the line when it is more appropriate to address visa issues, visa concerns.
Right.
And at that time, we can bring on a professional consultant who can probably guide and address some of the common issues or questions that riders can have. But yes, again, reiterating, UK visa was an issue for LEL because a lot of people applied barely 1 month before the event date. Right? So just 1 or 2 months before, whereas, just coming out of COVID, there was a huge demand and backlog for international travel. So I don't anticipate such a similar situation again in this the coming August, as was the case for LEL. Yeah.
So one of the other points which Chandrakant brought up actually was about navigation. So what actually happened was that I was at the finish line at PBP, and Chandrakant they had reached the last control point before the finish, and they were very close to it. I could see them on the tracking. I could see that they were very close to that control point, but they were unable to find it. So what happens is PBP is completely marked. The entire route is marked with signboards. But if you miss a signboard and you go off into, especially when you're entering and exiting towns, that's where you could go into a little bylane here and there, and you may be very close to the route, but you have no idea how to navigate back. So for sure, make sure that you're carrying navigation tools in addition to just the route guidance, and make sure that you're carrying proper power banks to be able to power your phone or whatever other navigation tools you are using. So navigation is something that you need to be a little bit aware of even in a event like PBP, which is fully marked with signboards. So the food issue has actually, someone has asked a question, and I'll just throw it out there for some of the PBP participants to address. How do we address the food issue at PBP, especially for vegetarians? How to avoid the long line at the control point without carrying too much weight on the bike?
Okay. There is one private company who can carry your bags at a control around 400 kilometers. They give you baggage control. It's a private company. Yeah. First thing. Second thing, about veg food, it's very difficult to get much more veg food at France. We have one person, Dr. Bhausab Aksore from Nashik, who was 100% vegetarian. He was on banana and apple for 1 or 2 days.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And electral only.
Okay.
One more thing, navigation. You have to make proper plan about sleeping that we missed because of hallucination, and we have 100 meters away from that control for 9 hours.
Okay, right. Sleep is something everybody has to.
Sleep apnea, that is.
Yeah.
We have to make proper plan for. And about Gagan Grover, he was riding almost 10 kilometers before the last finish point for 3 hours, and he missed that.
Oh God!
Because of hallucination.
Right. That's right. Right.
He was round and round for 5 kilometer round.
Yes.
Almost 3 hours.
Wow. Yes. I heard about that. Yeah.
Wow. If I can address the food aspect, the query that was raised from my end, what I saw at every control point is that even though you see long lines, they are all fast moving lines. You don't end up spending more than 2 to 3 minutes, let's say, in the line to get your brevet card stamp. Even the food counters are fully stocked. It's not some a la carte system. They will have stuff ready to be just picked up. And you pay at the counter. Control points will accept credit cards also. You don't need to get too much stressed about carrying lots of change coins for payment at controls and struggle with those kinds of things. And right, I mean, slowly now Europe is picking up on vegan culture, so there will be some options for vegetarians. I agree, there won't be a huge varied buffet line like in India with plenty of options for vegetarians, but there will be some things. And uh, the only point where I did see a lot of congestion was at the Ludiac control point, which is around 40 kilometers. Also, the location where Mr. Chandrakant Harpale talked about the drop back. So that is the point where you see maximum riders accumulated at a control. It's a honeypot. So you can get stuck there. So in order to alleviate that load at that control point, ACP has set up 2 support points, one on either side of Ludiac, about 20-30 kilometers before you get to Ludiac from the start point. Then after you clear Ludiac, after hardly 15-20 kilometers, there's another support point. They aren't timed controls. They are simply support points officially by ACP. One is at Cadillac, which will be before Ludiac. And once you cross Ludiac, in another 15-20 kilometers, you will get to St. Nicola, which is another support point, which will have sleep arrangements, food, all the support things that you see at the regular timed controls. So my advice here is that look at your ride plan. If you're ahead of schedule before reaching Ludiac, you can have your longer break at Cadillac, get your food and freshen up over there. Because if you try to do that at Ludiac, you will get stuck. If you are running a bit late, better to get to Ludiac, get yourself stamped, and then push on forward to St. Nicola, and then have your dinner break or refreshments, whatever, at St. Nicola. So that's one way you can manage to your timing and avoid getting stuck at Ludiac. But otherwise, at other controls, you'll generally see a moving crowd, a moving traffic at all the lines.
Yeah.
Nice.
Grinchina, did you have any inputs that you would like to share about both PBP and LEL?
Actually, it's really very noisy.
Okay.
But quickly, I think the main issue I had was with the times I spent at controls. So I kind of repeated the same thing. The controls are like a trap, time trap. So the best strategy to save time is to enter and exit ASAP. So and it's important to remember that, especially when you're very cold and it's cozy and warm inside, you just mentally it's so comforting to be in the warmth. So maybe be really strict about that and put an alarm or something and make sure you just step out of that place.
Right. Now I remember that too, because if it's especially if you have really bad weather, if you have a storm or something and you're in a control point with there's warm, friendly, welcoming people, and there's food and everything. You tend to take a little longer because you're just cozy and comfortable rather than being out on the road and being rained upon or stormed upon. So,
Yeah, and in my case, I am a foodie and I like to experience local cultures. So that's one of the reasons I love randonneering. So I end up looking for those specific food from that region, and I like to take my time doing those kind of things. So yeah, but if you want to complete, I think it's better at least to save time in the bank time early on, and then if you have time later on.
on the
You
way
can,
back.
yeah, on the way back.
Yeah. Are there any other questions about PVP or LEL?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to know from the PVP riders, like when they say like with the cold. So like, what's the minimum temperature it dropped to, and like if it rained, like is there a possibility of raining for a long duration of time, or is it like a drizzle for that?
So the rain over there compared to the kind of rain that we have here, even the rain you have in the Northeast or in Maharashtra, the rain there is cold. So I think 2011 we had a storm. We had a proper storm for a day and a half, and the issue was not just that the rain and the cold. One had to wear like warm wear for it, but also the moment it would stop raining, in the temperate zone, it becomes warm also very fast. So one had to keep stopping to remove layers and put them back on, and we lost time even after it started clearing. But Raghu, you had some inputs?
Right. So in terms of hard numbers, in 2019, the temperature dipped down to 4 degrees Celsius in the night.
Wow.
Okay. And that's what my bike computer registered. But add to that the wind chill factor when you're going downhill on a 6%, 8% gradient, uh, and you're not pedaling because, well, you're moving fast enough anyway. So your body tends to cool down anyway. And on top of that, you have this cold wind hitting you. So yeah, I mean, while it is summer slash fall transition time in August in France, uh, that's comparable to our peak winter. So going back to what I had mentioned earlier, now is the time to get your winter training in, buy your winter clothing now, and test all of that right now. And that is what will keep you cozy through riding through the night.
Yeah. And full finger gloves. If the night is cold, you just have to have full finger gloves. You want to be able to keep control on your bike and be able to use your brakes. So yeah. And the other thing was, like I mentioned, in 2019, I know of 2 riders from India who went to sleep, and they were like, there was hypothermia, mild hypothermia, or so avoid doing that. Like sleeping out in the open in the night would be it's not recommended at all. I used ATMs and a couple of other places to cozy down for a little while for short nap. But that's another thing, okay? I know of so many riders who have overslept during PVP and lost the entire event because they overslept. So you have to, like I said, carry a power bank and ensure that your phone is charged and that you set an alarm before you go to sleep. Don't rely on fellow riders. That's another thing which I've heard these stories over and over again, riders getting mad at each other because they went to sleep at some control point or somewhere on the way together, and they told each other that they would wake each other up, and one leaves without the other, and things like that. I mean, this is for real. This really does happen. So don't just depend on someone to wake you up and do it. make sure that you have your alarm set to wake up in time.
On the sleep part, my personal experience was at Ludiac. I had taken a bed for a couple of hours. I had booked it. So the booking process at the table, because of the language barrier, thousands of riders from across the world. So they have this clock uh, uh, thing, prop, on which you indicate your wake up time. And then, the volunteer will come with a small flashlight and flash you in the eyes and wake you up gently without waking up people around you who are still asleep. So I did get a wake up, but I think my riding partner, Darik, had complained that he wasn't woken up. So stuff like that can happen. But, yeah, if you go to sleep at controls, you have that option of setting a wake up time with the volunteer when you book your sleep spot.
I would still say, even at the control point, be self-reliant and set your own alarm as well. I mean, figure it out, because if there's some miscommunication, something, especially with the language issues, or they're not able to wake you up, whatever, just make sure that you. Okay, are there any other questions?
Practice taking coffee naps. I think I missed out on that. And I had a hard time getting those, short 15-minute, 20-minute naps, which would have really saved my skin. I reached breast terribly sleep deprived. When you take a long stop, it takes a while for me to fall asleep. So
yeah,
that's maybe one more point I wanted to put in. Learn to take quick short naps, rather than hoping for one long 3-4 hour sleep break at one single location. That might be more problematic. You might run into time constraints to get to the next immediate control point.
Right. Yep. Any other questions from anyone?
Just one more question. Like a cold you have mentioned, the weather would be foggy also. Fog would be there.
Sometime you will find in the morning, early morning.
Yeah.
Okay. Like India, so much dense fog is there, na? So in Europe.
Yeah, maybe.
I do not recall seeing dense fog. I rode through the night or through early morning. Nothing of the sort that led to poor visibility conditions, so to speak.
You can have foggy conditions. It depends on where you are precisely at that time. There you can have some that situation. The thing is that don't compromise on your lights. The only thing that you can do against, so that's something which is outside of your control. So the only thing to do to help yourself through that is to make sure that your lights are in good working condition. You have proper battery, if they're chargeable, then you need, again, come back to the power bank, or if you have spare batteries, spare lights, don't compromise on those things. The other thing that what I've noticed is that people have their light, and then the backup lights are this almost useless kind of a thing. And my thing is that if you're carrying the weight of a backup, any kind of a backup with you, it needs to be as good and as functional as your main light, whether it's a spare bike in case of supported races or anything else. Your backup has to be as good as your main thing, because if something fails, you're going to use your backup. Otherwise, don't bother carrying it. So make sure that you're carrying backups also, which can provide you with
Thanks. Backup would be more useful in that case. Main would be training.
Yeah, absolutely
Definitely.
should have good backup. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's any other. Hi, Benoit. Ben, good to see you back in India.
Hello everyone.
Just to introduce Ben, Ben just raced Deccan Cliffhanger last month and won. Ben is from France, but have you done any Audax events, Ben?
No, so PBP, I never done it, but in fact, my house in France is nearby Brest. So I know very well this area and this region.
Okay.
And so I can confirm that the weather around Brest is unpredictable. It is considered as one of the more humid region in France. So rain can happen anytime. And yes, even in August, temperature can be very low sometime. Someone was asking the temperature. I think if you are not lucky during the night, you can have sometimes below 10 degrees temperature.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you have always to be very careful. And last year I did a very long ride of 250 kilometers in Brittany, so from Brest to Normandy. And I started at night and I got rain for maybe 6 or 7 hours. It was super cold and it was in July, and which is supposed to be the warmer season in France.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been. Right. So most of the group here today is, quite a few of the people over here in the group today are interested to do PBP this year, in the coming year in August. So, and some have already done it. There's quite a few here. Yeah. Okay, so let me know if anybody has any other queries about UltraSpice. Whether I know that this session and this whole thing to open up the UltraSpice 1200, and for those who are considering PBP is a bit last minute because it's UltraSpice is just about 3.5 weeks away from now. But if anybody's thinking about it, then just get in touch with me and we'll. Or just register. Yeah. Okay. So
a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Is it better to have a hybrid considering the rolling terrain and rain?
Well, so it really, as far as the choice of your bicycle goes, that's the choice of equipment that you're using. It's not dependent on PBP terrain. It's what you're used to over here. So PBP has been done by people on mountain bikes, but I mean, unless you're really fast, like Mohan has done it on mountain bike. I know one or two others have done it. I think Kishan, did you do it on mountain bike?
Yep.
Yeah, right. How do you feel about this question?
I think that's personal preference. I won't say like go with the hybrid if you're using road bike. It's not like terrain or the rain will affect if you're having a road bike or hybrid. It's like I don't have a road bike and I was saying just MTB, so I went with the MTB.
Right. Yeah. If you're used to using a road bike, don't switch to a hybrid.
So if the concern here is the gearing, then I addressed that in my presentation, the YouTube link that Divya shared in the chat. I mean, the average gradient at PBP is 6%. So most of these hills are ranging from 1 kilometer to 3 kilometer long climbs, with the exception of rock traversal, which is again not a steep climb. So don't compare this with LEL or looking to blogs and vlogs from riders at LEL. LEL had steep climbs, and and I think Chandrakant just reminded us also, some of the gradients went up to 20 to 25%, at which point people were just getting off their bikes and hiking it up. So you are not going to see those kinds of steep climbs at PBP. PBP route is not having such kind of climbs. So don't worry about too much about running out of gears that you would be wishing you had brought your mountain bike. As Kishan mentioned that he wasn't having a road bike, that's why he took his MTB. It's personal preference. A lot of people do road cycling with their MTBs or hybrids. If that is what you are training on, then go with that. But I see no reason to switch from your road bike to your MTB, nor, I mean, I saw a lot of people changing their group sets on their roadies to opt for a 11 to 32 tooth cassette so that they had that little bit extra range. But again, for 6% gradient, I think if you have the standard cassette, which is generally 11 to 28 tooth, that should be fine for PBP.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the road condition is very good. I mean, I will let Raghu or Kishan or anyone else confirm, but the roads are very good in France. Most of them, I mean.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely the roads are great, but I mean, most of the Indians riding brevets in India will be accustomed to that butter smooth surfacing, asphalt surfacing, which is not there in France. I think it has a slightly more rough profile. I think for the snow, so that car tires have better traction when it snows. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, it's not.
You are in Gujarat. Ben and I are in Maharashtra. It's a totally different perspective of road conditions.
We sometimes get.
But yeah, I mean, there's no potholes that you need to worry about.
Yeah.
At the most, some of the smaller towns, some of the sections were cobbled, but hardly, maybe like 100 meters or something. Which okay, we are not used to riding on cobbled sections in India. That's the only thing you need to be wary about. It's not like any of it is unrideable, so to speak. Very much rideable and excellent roads, no problem. And I mean, I started from Rambouillet with a spare tire zip tied to my top tube. And by the time I got to Ludiac, since I had my drop back there, I actually just cut off the zip ties and dumped my tire in my drop back because the roads were so great. I saw absolutely no need to carry a whole spare tire with me. I mean, I had tire boots. I recommend that in case you have a unfortunate crash or something, you slit your tire, you can use a tire boot to get to the next control. As Kishan mentioned, all control points are fully stocked. I noticed every single control point had pretty much a functioning bike shop. There was a bike mechanic, fixing up people's broken pedals and whatnot. So going back to what Divya suggested earlier, some of the more unique things like your rear derailleur hanger, that you should carry spare with you. If you have a road bike that is on 650B tires, that might be something a bit more unique, which you may have to have with you. But otherwise, if you are on standard road bike, 700C, running 11 speed, 12 speed chain, you can buy a chain I mean, it's all, the controls are fully stocked. You can, if you make it to the next control, you can get your issue sorted out.
Yeah.
Raghu sir, I will add two or three things more. One is you must carry chain link with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, chain link, additional brake pad only that we can replace if there is rain. Then, moreover, you can find the brake pad tears very early. Yeah, and the dehanger must be with you. That is the like you have cycle, you have extra dehanger must be with you.
Yeah. Okay, I think that covers it. Vegetarian food. Yes, there are more options available. And yeah, we've discussed this quite a bit. I think at the control points, you will find something that you can have. There's always bread and cheese at the control points. So the thing is that you have to, if you can't expect Indian vegetarian food to be there at the control points, but you'll always get some vegetarian options. There'll always be some pasta and some like sauteed vegetables. On a rare occasion, the control points also have some kind of a rice dish, or there'll be some soup. It's not like everything there has got non-veg in it. So vegetarian food is available. The thing is, you have to be adaptable, and you have to accept eating food which is strange to your palate. So that's something that you have to work on now to ensure that you are adaptable in your approach to food. Yeah. Carbohydrates in vegetarian food. How do we practice?
Also, PBP has this festive atmosphere across the whole route. So when you're passing through a lot of these small towns, you're literally riding from outside people's homes, and so many locals will set up their picnic tables right outside their house, and couple of times I stopped, I had coffee, I had cake made by the locals. People will be making crepes and handing them out to riders. So yeah, I mean, there will be options, but of course don't depend on that. And as Ben mentioned, when early on in the evening, probably if you plan it well about these things, you can stop at a local grocery store in some town that you're passing by, and stock up on some supplies if food is getting to be a challenge for you.
Yeah, the route, so many people out there cheering for you. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Don't do what I did, which was to cheer back at them and wave and say thank you to every single person who cheers you. That can be exhausting. Yeah.
Start point was a challenge for food because there are 6,000 to 7,000 people at the start point flagging off, even though they're flagging off in waves every 15 minutes. There's a huge influx of people. I was extremely surprised. Pretty much all the restaurants were closed on Sunday over there. It's a very small town. Everything was closed. I could not get anything in town because the food joint inside that park where the flag off was, it was just overcrowded with so many riders. So food line at the start point was a huge challenge. So I would suggest pack some sandwiches when you're leaving for the start point. You can have that, and then not flag off on a relatively empty stomach, which is what we ended up doing. Many of us ended up doing. So that would be a really bad start. right? So just be careful about that as well.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no more questions, we can wrap up the session. Yeah. I think, yeah, Raghu, I guess you will be setting up more PBP specific sessions as we get closer to the date, right?
Yeah, sure. Already one presentation is almost ready on lighting systems, lighting solutions for people to consider. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Good. Yeah. All right. And I'll share. Yeah. So I'll share the recording of this with once it's out on Audax and Inspired India pages, so you can get it.
I think I see something in the chat about bread and cheese.
Baguette on the
baguette. So see, be creative. Carry maybe your favorite condiment sachet ketchup that you like at home, and you can put that in the baguette and cheese. Make it more palatable for you. So
I think there was some riders. Right, there were some riders from India who had carried these ready mix packs that you get of like upma or some rice or something, and which you just have to put boiling water in it or hot water in it.
Yeah.
So,
I will add the Gits India is makes ready-made packets. You have to only add boiling water. Gits India, GITS, Gits India.
Okay.
You will you will get online or in mall also.
Right. Yeah.
That we have carried with us.
Yeah. And that is useful. You can, and hot water you can source from anywhere. Even some of the bars and cafes on the way, you can just ask them for a little hot water and pour it in, so you don't waste time.
If you just ask them, they will provide you.
Yeah.
En route, also there are a lot of people who can provide you hot water.
Correct.
Yeah, and sweet chapati. They give a sweet chapati en route, which is will get as complimentary from local peoples.
Really?
That is also very good.
Okay. Oh, the crepes. The crepes.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, I'm from Pune. I'm like Puran Puri. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. All the best for all the events that you've got ahead lined up for you all. Bye. Good night.
Bye. Good night. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Dhanyawad.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.